We're talking today about TRT, testosterone optimization, replacement, whatever it is you want to call it. That is the topic of today's discussion, and it is incredibly important. I thought, what better car to do this talk in than the R8 before I store it? Naturally aspirated V10, gated manual. I just had it serviced, driving gorgeously. So let's hop straight into it. But before I do, I want to talk about like a precautionary warning, because when you start having conversations about optimizing male hormones, you get a little bit of hate. It's okay when women do it, but when guys do it and they talked about optimizing themselves, you'll get things like, ooh, you're doing steroids. Why don't you just age naturally, and blah, blah, blah. This is by far one of the best things I've ever done in my 40s. It is something that every man should consider. Haters will come at you. Okay. I mean, this is no different than women, getting a boob job after gravity sets in after a few kids. This is no different than a Botox injection. This is no different than what women do when it comes to things like optimizing their hormones around menopause. So it's an incredibly important conversation, and somewhat, it's almost like it's avoided by men, because the difference between men and women when it comes to aging is when women hit menopause, it's obvious. They know it's like a big, drastic change in their hormonal balance. When it comes to men, though, it's very slow and gradual. After the age of 30, testosterone drops by about 1% per year. Pretty much until you die. But the interesting that I noticed about the clinic that I'm using is probably about 75% of the visitors that go there are mostly women. So a lot of guys don't get this conversation message. So it's incredibly important we talk about it. So first things first, I'll get into the my why. I think we can. Oh, yeah, sounds so good. I think we can hit the road now. The why behind doing something like this is quite simple. You want to feel better. I pretty much always knew, starting in my 20s, that at some point I would have to probably consider going on TRT. Because of, the obvious fact that I said earlier. I mean, men's testosterone drops as you get older. Your body's not going to function the same way. I started after, about a year, maybe a year and a half ago, I started, coming up with these symptoms, which were really annoying. I mean, I just wasn't operating optimally, if you will. I hope you can hear me okay. This car is a little bit loud. And what you should understand is you're going to start to notice this. It's going to be obvious. I went through a couple of things in my life that were extremely stressful, which I'm suspecting probably triggered the need for me to look at this. Terrible sleep. I mean, after divorce and some crappy things that happened with my business and a really bad breakup with a bad, woman, single mommy sort of deal, you end up with a lot of stress. Cortisol levels will change. Your hormonal balance will, modify slightly. So it's pretty natural. But the added compound is like fueling the fire. Terrible sleep. One of the things I noticed was a lot of brain fog. I wasn't able to focus and get things done. When I would go to the gym, for example, I wasn't that inclined to do what I would normally do there. Sometimes I would go in and plan to do an hour thing, and I do like 15, 20 minutes of some BS week out, exercises, even with very low weights. I started to notice my strength was going down. Your joints, kind of like feel a little bit different after a while. Another symptom that guys notice as well is a lot less morning wood. So when you start looking at something like testosterone optimization, ideally what it's supposed to do is get you to where you are around 30. And if you're optimally operating here around 30, I was pretty strong. I was always lifting weights, around 203 pounds when I was about 30 years old. I'm just under 6'3". And I felt really good then. And this drastic slow change where you become weaker, you sleep worse, you just don't feel as good anymore. Something's wrong. Something's wrong, right? So, you go get it checked out. Well, here's what I found. But before we talk about that, I just want you guys to listen to this, because this is one of the finest engines ever made in a car. I just had the engine service. I spent $1,200 on a carbon cleaning, changed all the fluids. So one of the problems with these V10s is there's a carbon buildup. So let's see how this feels. Oh, mommy! Yeah, that's it. Okay. It's working good. Okay, so back to the TRT stuff. Started to notice a problem, went to go check it out. Doctor basically runs a full blood lab on me. So I started around November, December last year. Runs a full blood lab. Wanted to try to optimize things naturally. He said my testosterone was in normal ranges. Now that's normal ranges based on government issued tables. What's normal is not what we feel optimal at, based on these tables from my experience anyway. I've talked to a few guys that are experts in this space, and I actually learned that the normal range has been lowered over the last 20 to 30 years simply because men's testosterone is dropping so dramatically that they actually, like, you know, it's almost like when the kids can't jump high enough to dunk the ball when they play basketball, just lower the basketball hoop size. Well, that's what they've done with these tables for testosterone. They've basically lowered the optimal range so that it suits what people are registering at, so they don't treat them, which is unfortunate because a lot of guys could benefit from testosterone optimization treatment like I'm going to describe in this video. So anyway, we get the blood labs pulled. He does a little bit of work, gives me a prescription for DHEA to try to increase that, hoping that that might optimize the other things. One of the other things that I was dealing with was my estradiol was out of whack. It was too high versus my testosterone levels. So he tried some more natural treatments before he prescribed anything. Did another set of blood labs 4 months later. No improvement, complete static, nothing that changed whatsoever. Which brings me to the other point. By the way, guys, testosterone boosters, they are garbage. They do not work. Save your money. Do not spend your money on that. If you're eating clean, you're taking proper vitamins and mineral supplements like zinc, for example, boron, stuff like that, your testosterone levels will balance naturally if your body's functioning properly. The problem is we live a sedentary lifestyle. You know, we've evolved basically as what do they call us? They call us endurance predators, meaning, you know, we used to run the savannah for 2 hours to run down a whatever it was that we were hunting. And we don't do that kind of stuff anymore. We haven't for a very long time. We now mostly sit in front of computers. We're sedentary. Our bodies get bombarded with Wi-Fi's Bluetooth signals, cell phone tower signals. There's all this crap attacking our endocrine system, and the mitochondria, you know, in our body, especially in our balls as men, aren't always going to function in an optimal fashion. So, I mean, I've met guys as young as, 33 that have had to have this prescribed to optimize their hormones and make them operate properly at an optimal level. So, back to the point. If your optimal level's around here when you're 30, that's ideally what you're shooting for. What'll end up happening is, as you get older, it starts to drop a little bit, and then you're no longer feeling optimal. There's a gap between where you feel good versus where you are, and that's what testosterone optimization treatment will do. Is it'll optimize you to bring you back up to where you want to be, so that you feel good. All right, next thing, let's talk about the protocol that I'm on. So he prescribed after the second set of blood labs. All right, let's try introducing testosterone cypionate, which is a bioidentical testosterone injection, basically. Well, let's talk about delivery systems, because some people will probably ask those questions. There's pellets, which are garbage. They basically surgically embed them in your body. You want to try to avoid those, in my opinion, anyway. You can do your own research. There's creams, which are very expensive and not very effective. You can get them on your kids, your dogs, your spouse. You don't want that. So again, I would discourage you from even considering that. Nasal sprays. There's all kinds of delivery systems, but the one that's tried, true, and proven that most guys are afraid of is bi-weekly injections. Some doctors will say 3 times a week. Some it's bi-weekly. Bi-weekly is what I'm doing. And yes, you have to pin yourself twice a week. Some clinics will try to get you to come in and have themselves do it, which I discourage, simply because you don't need to do that. 1, it's inconvenient, and 2, they're just trying to make extra money off you. So my doctor will just say, here's a prescription, here's how you do it. He shows you once, and then you take care of yourself from there. So twice a week, you're pinning yourself. There's a little bit of discomfort. Your hand shakes the first couple of times because you're nervous. You're sticking a needle in yourself. But, anybody that's done it more than once or twice gets comfortable. It's very, very easy. The pain level is very low. The amount of inconvenience is very low. It only takes 3 or 4 minutes twice a week. To put it in the perspective, is the juice worth the squeeze? It's a hell yeah. Definitely it is worth the squeeze. It's no different than flossing your teeth. Yeah, it's a bit of a pain in the butt, but you need to get it done. Same sort of thing with this. You can travel with it. I've been down to the Caribbean. I've been down to the States with it. You obviously pack the needles in your checked luggage, and you keep your medication with you on the carry-on. Pretty straightforward stuff. My protocol also included, about 45 days later, something called HCG. You can Google it. But generally, to kind of break it down in layman's terms, the way the doctor described it, he says most single guys or guys that want to remain fertile or have kids will include HCG in the protocol. Married guys usually don't care. They'll just go with just testosterone. The benefit to the HCG is multifold for me anyway. After about a month and a half of just being on testosterone cypionate, I found that I started to feel like I did before. I felt incredible for about 3 or 4 weeks. And then one of the things that happens is your balls will start to atrophy. So your testicles will start to shrink a little bit, because what happens is your body recognizes testosterone levels are now optimal. We don't need to produce our own in our body, and it's produced in your testicles in men. So let's just shut them down because we don't need those anymore. So that can be somewhat uncomfortable for men. So that's one of the drawbacks, but quite easy to fix with HCG. So you just add that to the same shot. I just include it in the same syringe in my bi-weekly shot, so it's not that inconvenient. Some clinics will want you to separate them, so you might be doing 4 shots a week. I just want to keep my life simple, and it seems to be working. So I just went with that. Protocol is fairly straightforward. Now, some of you guys early on were going, "Oh, steroids." Yeah, it is a anabolic, but it is not bodybuilder, dosage. It is not a bodybuilder protocol. That would amount to somewhere between 6 to 10 times more on a weekly basis. It's much, much higher. That's how they gain 20 to 30 pounds of muscle in 6 to 8 months and end up with stretch marks and things like that. That's not what this is. This is not a bodybuilding regime. It is an optimization regime, which is designed to get you back to feeling how you were when you were younger. Again, I feel close to where I was at 30. I'm not sure if I'm quite there yet. I want to go through a few more blood panels, and we'll do a couple more tweaks along the way. But again, excuse me, I've only been doing this for about 6 or 7 months. So that's my protocol, if that makes sense. Overall, it is a game changer. If you're suffering with symptoms like lethargic, shortness of breath, not waking up with morning wood, lower libido, things like that, lack of strength, lack of focus, this is a guaranteed game changer, and any guy should consider looking at this. It doesn't matter if you're in your late 30s or 40s. It can hit any guy at any given time.
All right, guys, I really hope that you enjoyed that clip. If you want to check out the full-length podcast episode, you can find that right over here. Also, make sure you visit my website over here, where you'll find my supplements, the opportunity to book me privately one-on-one for coaching, and most importantly, my new School of Unplugging, which you'll find on the courses tab. Newer to the channel? Hit subscribe.